Being an unwed 24-year-old, all pregnancies scare me. The thought of bringing another human being into this world kicking and screaming without first asking them if they even want to exist is a nightmare. The fact that an entire person is growing inside of someone is also a little bit bonkers to me. Add in the inherent cost of a baby, dirty diapers, and for whatever reason having to do an extravagant gender reveal, and that's an all-around bad time. But what if the baby was evil, like hungry for flesh, a veritable monster of horrific proportions? That's what we'll explore today. It's time to talk about the top 5 horror movie pregnancies that will scare you. Coming in at number 5, we've got Adrian from Rosemary's Baby. You know, Adrian, the son of Satan? I suppose he's the result of the pregnancy rather than the pregnancy itself, but still, there's no way that we're doing a list about horror movie baby making without mentioning the granddaddy of all scary pregnancies. Where do I even begin? This is probably the creepiest pregnancy I can conjure up, and that's saying something. Like, this young couple moves into their lovely new apartment and is almost immediately descended upon by some nosy neighbors with no concept of boundaries, like none. Then, the weirdness really starts. Poor Rosemary, she just wanted a little bundle of joy, but what she ended up with was a lot of tannis root rituals and satanic sludge being pumped inside of her. Oh no. The worst bit is that all of the worst stuff can't be proved right off the bat. Like, all of the unsolicited advice and gifts she receives can't really be denied without looking standoffish and irritable. So Rosemary goes along with it, even though she feels something is a little off. Confiding in her husband, Guy, he tells her that everything is alright and she's likely just feeling the effects of being an expectant mother. Little does she know though, Guy's in on it too. All for the glory of Satan and the benefits he will bring to his followers. So even as Rosemary gets sick and feels off and has nightmares involving the devil, she carries on. Her friends that sort of believe her slowly disappear, and soon she's surrounded by only folks from her building. It's so insidious how it all plays out, and it's more disturbing every time you watch it and notice new details giving away their plan. Could you imagine thinking that you were going to have a baby, and taking some help from your generous neighbors to ease the process, and then it turns out that they were just using you to birth a baby to appease their god and reap rewards? What a violation. Although there isn't really that much explicitly scary or gory imagery in the movie, the atmosphere it creates is chilling to say the least. It's a classic for a reason. This is a horror movie pregnancy that even non-horror fans are very much familiar with. Coming in at number 4, we've got Brenda in the barn from Slither. Now here's a fun phrase for you: Lovecraftian pregnancy. Oh yeah, that is loaded with implications. Brenda, poor Brenda. Since she was a girl, she had a crush on the oddly named Grant Grant. She watched as he dated her older sister in high school and wondered what it would be like. Then, years down the road, there he was, drinking in a dive bar, looking for a little love. She knew he was married, but what's the worst that could happen, right? Oh, if only she knew. After a night of heavy drinking and tomfoolery, they stumble into the woods for additional tomfoolery. Bad call, because hiding in the woods is a crazy space rock full of terrible creatures. Grant gets infected by these lovely world-destroying parasites and wrangles Brenda to be his breeding sow. Oof. Tying her up in a barn, Grant fills Brenda with little baby slug things and leaves her there to incubate them. Periodically feeding her and not doing all that much about the stench, Grant now has a vessel for his intergalactic brood. Folks start looking for her, but they come up short. Eventually, the barn is located after Grant goes on a bit of a killing spree, but by that point, Brenda has swollen up like an overinflated water balloon, taking up a majority of the open space inside the structure. It is grotesque. She barely resembles her old self and seems to be in a great deal of pain. All she wants to do is die, a wish that will soon be granted, or granted. The grubs inside of her prove to be too much, and the aforementioned water balloon bursts, but the inside is not filled with water. It's blood, bile, and alien creatures that are looking to enter every orifice they can find. All this is quite nasty and results in the total destruction of a small town, but can you imagine what it might have been like for Brenda? Alone in a bar, hungover, with something foreign growing inside of you while your childhood crush periodically stops by to make sure you didn't escape? Slowly losing your humanity, having your body grow in ways you didn't think were possible, being force-fed rotten animals in order to sustain it all? That's a pregnancy I would never wish upon anyone. That's a Dunwich horror pregnancy. Coming in at number 3, the baby zombie from Dead Alive. In most zombie fiction, if a baby is zombified, that probably means it was bit or otherwise infected by the undead. This is not the case in Dead Alive. Not even close. Let me set the stage for this horrible little gremlin. Lionel Cosgrove's awful shrew of a mother gets attacked by a rat monkey at the zoo and slowly becomes a zombie. The nurse attending her is killed and also returns from the dead as a zombie. Then, after Mother Cosgrove is buried, she rises from her grave and infects some hoodlums along with a priest. Lionel, desperate to keep this all a secret, hides the nurse and the priest in his basement. One would assume that zombies don't have much of a libido, but they'd be wrong. The priest and the nurse get zombie busy, smooshing their undead bits together and eventually producing offspring. Apparently, zombie pregnancies are a lot more efficient than human ones, so they pop out this ghastly tot in a couple of weeks and it's up to Lionel to take care of it. He walks it through the park, which ends terribly. God, this thing is hideous. And in order to keep his lover safe, Lionel breaks up with her. I, for one, think it was a good call to keep the zombie baby produced by the two corpses in your basement away from your girlfriend. Coming in at number 2, we've got Nola from The Brood. Of all the pregnancies on this list, this Cronenbergian classic is probably the most visually upsetting. As is the case with most of Cronenberg's early movies, the body horror here is on a whole other level. Throughout the movie, we catch glimpses of terrible little goblins who only seem to want to sow discord and rob people of their lives. Once one of these creatures is killed and autopsied, all sorts of strange things are discovered. They're asexual, colorblind, naturally toothless, and devoid of a navel, meaning that there's no way they could have been born naturally. Fascinating. This leads back to Nola, the queen bee of the whole operation. After experiencing some strange medical issues as a child, she was taken in by Somafree, an organization that encourages people to use psychoplasmics to cure their ills. She had unknowingly created a brood of killer dwarves parthenogenetically, all fueled by her rage. Her psychic connection with these creatures led them to kill without her knowledge. That's freaky on its own for sure, but seeing the birth happen in real time seals the deal. The image of Nola, clad in white, revealing her deformed and extremely pregnant body before birthing another creature and licking it clean, will never leave my mind. Who else but Cronenberg, right? And finally, at number 1, we've got little baby Davis from It's Alive. Imagine birthing this little monster. No thank you. After creating one perfectly fine little human, the Davis family decided to take a break so they could focus on their careers and each other. Instead of employing other means of contraception, they decided to use some experimental birth control. Then, years later, they hopped off the pill and tried again. It's Alive posits that if you ever for one moment decide that you'd not like to have a baby every time you fornicate, you deserve a demon child. Because lo and behold, when they finally give birth to their second child, it's an evil imp instead of a babbling baby. Great. The thing is uber powerful immediately after having its cord cut. It absolutely wrecks the team of attending doctors and nurses and flings itself through a skylight. Thus begins a killing spree the likes of which has never been seen. A baby cutting through swaths of people with seemingly no effort. Put yourself in the mother's shoes for a moment. Somebody comes into your hospital room and tells you that they lost the baby. But what they really mean is that the baby escaped and is responsible for a handful of violent deaths and will likely continue to kill. Never again, thank you very much. If you weren't so sure about pregnancy before, you probably have your mind made up now. I'd say there are enough babies out there. It's not worth the risk of pushing out a zombie or a demon or a million killer slugs. So, what'd you think of the list? Do you agree with my picks? Are there any horrid horror pregnancies that I missed? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more slimy ones from the top 5 angels that are worse than demons, part 4. Teeny B says, you guys should do a top 5 scariest fairies. Not enough attention is paid to the smaller creatures on this channel, and fairy folklore is always interesting. So it's a good idea, but I'm afraid that if I discuss the fae, they'll come and get me. Maybe someday. Sinister Sadie says, so nice to see Frailty get some love. It's such an excellent film. I've really enjoyed this topic and that you've brought in celestial beings from a variety of text and media. Keep being awesome. Hey, glad to hear you're having a good time. We'll try to keep it up. Fourth Doctor says, is there a connection between the Ophanim and the similar looking Hell Drive that propels the event horizon? You tell me, do angels have jurisdiction over the cosmos too? Patrick Crane says, Keegan, as always, great video. One issue, sir. Dogma was made in 1998, not 89 like you mentioned in the video. 89 was the year of the Batman. Good catch. A classic numbered gaffe. I must have read it wrong in the script or inputted the digits backwards. And Jay, but not Jay, says, this is making me eep. Good to know. And that's all the time we have for today. I'm gonna go see if I can recreate some Mario Party minigames in real life. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. She had unwillingly created a brood of killer dwarves parthenogenetically. She had unknowingly created a brood of killer dwarves parthenogenetically. Somebody sample that, make a beat.